darkest time. This is the sound of redemption. We will rise. This is the way that we bring it. In the darkest time. This is the way that we bring it down. We will rise. Down, down, down. I can't deny what I see, what I see. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. I can't deny what I see, what I see. Down, down, down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. We will. These are the things that will bring it down. We will rise. Down, down, down. I can't deny what I see, what I see. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. I can't deny what I see, what I see. Down, down, down. We will rise. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud, shout loud. We will Let's rise. Bring it down. Let's bring it way down. We will rise. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. We will rise. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down.
In the darkest time.
Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down.
In the darkest
Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down.
We don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. Come on. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Good morning. Let me get myself situated. It's gonna be a long one. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. It is beautiful. People always call me. I'm gonna take this call. Watch this. I'm gonna take this call, Vincent. Hold on. Now, Mr. Commander Forbes.
Hey, Dr. Dog.
Wait, Mr. Forbes. Before you say anything, I'm doing my show, and so you actually are live.
Good morning. What you mean you doing your show?
You know I'm doing my radio show. So say good morning. Say good morning from down south to everybody.
Good morning, radio listeners.
Good morning. How you doing, sir?
You got Commander Forbes in Wilson, North Carolina.
There you go.
All right.
And Mr. Commander Forbes is the brother of the late Bishop Eleanor Forbes.
That's right.
There we
That's
go.
right.
And y'all know who he was. You know his legacy. So, Mr. Forbes, since I have you on the phone, I know you probably called to talk to me personally, and I'll call you after the show.
Yeah.
But it is always you were such a tremendous friend to my father, and a tremendous friend to the family, man, that, I wanted to take your call and publicly just say that to you. That I love you very, very much, man.
Well, that was the humane thing to do for a great man like your father and your entire family.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
As my brother, the late Bishop Ellen Forbes, used to say, there are people in life who would not get things they deserve. And there are other people who get things, wait a minute, let me get it right, things that they didn't deserve. There were people who would not get things that they deserved. Some folks would get stuff that they did not deserve, and other folks would not get things that they do deserve. And that's where your father and your family legacy was. They did not get things that they deserved.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, man, I know I told you that I was working on shipping some cobbler down to you.
I've been waiting.
I know you've been.
My mouth is watering.
Yeah, well, hey, Commander, get in line, brother. There's a list of us still waiting.
All right, I understand.
But you will be happy to know why there's been a delay. We have been growing, Commander, by leaps and bounds, and just managing the business has taken a tremendous amount of time.
I know it has.
Yeah, and then we've been working on resolving some shipping issues. We thought we had them resolved. We actually sent something down to LA. We shipped to LA. That's the furthest we've shipped so far, LA. And we ran into some snags. And so we're working to fix those and perfect it. So, but it's coming, man. Trust me, it's coming. And when it gets there, it'll be worth the wait.
I know it will.
All
Anything Dr. Dawson do, I'm telling you, stand in line because it's gonna be mind-boggling.
Well, brother, I love you so much.
You're very patient and generous. For those of us who are not like you, get to work, Eric. Tired of waiting, sitting up here, had ice cream in the fridge for 4 weeks now.
Oh.
Well, listen, man, you put me on the spot, but it's always a good spot because I had just talked to you because we hadn't talked in a while.
Yeah.
But listen, man, go on with your thing. God bless you. Give my regards to the family. And we'll see you shortly or hear from you.
I love you, Commander.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did you see the video of the Army lieutenant, the medic, who was pepper sprayed by the police in Virginia?
Man, don't make me cry.
Did you know he was the cousin of Eric Gardner?
No.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
You got to be kidding me.
No.
Man, once again, what my brother said about people who deserve things they will not get. And people who get things that they don't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
There it is, man. I mean, you looking at a guy in a uniform, and then you want to talk about you as a veteran too. But then you ought to know how to treat people who have not created any type of problem.
But you know what, though? But, Commander, see, and we talk about this on the show. I mean, think about black Americans in this army, in the military in general, right?
Yeah.
Historically, we have been mistreated, right? We have been overlooked. We have been, and so why would we, and I always say this, why are we shocked? There is documentation after documentation of the mistreatment, the marginalization of black Americans in this military, and they have and they come from families that where some have given their lives for this country, right? And still,
because it's hard to believe with all of the struggles that we as a black race of people have been through, that it still exists to this day, because there would be no America if it had not been for black soldiers.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And we give our loyalty, generation after generation after generation, right? And
because it comes a time in life when is enough is enough. I am trying to understand for the like of me is why we, our own people, sometimes come after us just for the sake of. You know, we put these elected officials in, and what they do, instead of giving us a chance, they go the other way. Yeah, I'm trying to understand, but when it comes time for voting, they come to our communities, our churches, our neighborhoods, all vote for us. But then in reality, what do we receive when we vote for them?
We receive very little because they already feel like if they show up, they've already blessed us with everything that we need just by them showing up. And that's a lie. And we also go through the simple fact that, you know, we are so ready to accept or to believe that we are being included. And the inclusion is just, we find to be a delusion just to get our votes. Yet, this period that we're experiencing of conscientious awakeness, this period that we're experiencing where people can no longer be ignorant of what's going on into the facts, I believe that this is our opportunity to remind people of our struggles, remind people of our contributions, and start taking away all of these stereotypes. Stop accepting being marginalized, stop accepting being dismissed, and make our voices heard.
Now, Commander.
Our children deserve the change.
Now, Commander, I told this story, but you could tell it.
We can't go on this way.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So, Commander, I told this story, but you could tell it the best, right? And I listened to what Vincent just said, but we have, and I'm sure you'll agree, the system, the way that it is currently set up, it is not designed to work for us. It's designed to work against us. It's designed to keep us marginalized at the very top. And we, as Black Americans, spend our time focused on how wrong the Republican Party does us, and we don't focus enough attention on how wrong the Democratic Party does us, right? And so, you know, I've told the story a couple times about how you went with my dad when the Democratic Party, when at the highest levels, right? When Barack Obama ran for president, and Cory Booker was the mayor of Newark, and at the highest levels of the Democratic Party, they wanted this black man in this predominantly black city to not support the black man running for president. And what happened, Commander?
Your father had to convince Cory Booker that he would be the biggest fool in the world to not support the change that could come up to America by a black president. And so he and I and another friend, we went to meet with Hillary Clinton to tell Hillary that Cory could not support her because he was afraid to do it himself. And so we did that. We went and met with Hillary to tell her that Cory could not support her. He had to go. He had to do a John Lewis. John Lewis was supporting Hillary, but he had to come out openly and said, as friends of the Clintons was good, but in reality and actuality, he had to go with Obama. So we had to make sure that Cory did the same thing by telling him of the opportunity that lies in front of us.
And so would you agree? Because, see, when we talk about what we need, the biggest thing that we need in our community, in the Black American community, is a backbone. Amen. Right? And my father represented a backbone. Right? Where Cory didn't have a backbone.
No, I disagree.
Uh-oh.
Your father did not represent the backbone. He represented all the bones.
There you go. There you go. And so for that, and
Thank you.
He was a complete man.
and so for that, and I want folks to understand, we didn't script this phone call or any of these things, but it's important for context when I have the conversation with you guys. So, in terms of the courage and the strength and all of those things that are required, because we always see the failings and we talk about the failings of whether it's the faith-based community, the nonprofit organizations, or the elected officials, right? But when you do have, whether it was Dr. King or Malcolm or my dad, and I'm going to put him in that category, right?
That's what
Winds up happening, Commander, is the very community that needs that backbone, right? They're the very ones who destroy those people. Would you agree?
Yes, I would.
I'd say that that's not in its totality because, let's call it for what it is. We've got anti-black people. Okay. Now on this show, we call them Negro whisperers. We call them slave catchers. We don't use the C word anymore. Or I'm going to say something bad on this air. We don't call them coons anymore. But we still have that mindset of black people who are against black people. And that's true. But that's just a small percentage. The problem that we face is that small percentage got the loudest voice. And we need to start silencing them fools.
There's a gentleman in Detroit named Charles Adams. And he said it appears that the bad is winning. He said, but the bad is not winning. The good is just not saying anything. Somebody ought to say something.
Right.
There you go, brother.
And so I'm going to go back to what Dr. King said. And that's why I have this book up. Where do we go from here? Dr. King talks about during his struggle that there were far too few that were in the fight. Now, he didn't go in to talk about what they were doing, not being in the fight, but he said that there are far too few black Americans who were engaged in this fight that is necessary to extricate us from our current condition. And what I would say is this, that a lot of them, I think more than you would want to acknowledge, Vincent, are ankle biting and backbiting and backstabbing, right? And undermining, right? They're not quietly, on the sidelines. I remember, during the Nation of Islam, you had a lot of blacks, a lot of them in the community who didn't understand the Muslim movement, and they talked bad about Muslims, talked bad about them. Black people in black communities talked bad about them, talked bad about Malcolm. So I wouldn't marginalize their destructive presence.
Eric, like I said, it is true. There are people who have talked bad about Malcolm and Martin, but here is the fact. Yes, there are people who talk bad about Malcolm and Martin, but yet Malcolm and Martin in their rhetoric, either we're going to take a stance by any means necessary, or we're going to peacefully engage you guys until we wear you down, was still a threat to the white man, to the point where Hoover had files on them, infiltrated them, tried everything to destroy them.
I'm not suggesting that's not the case. I'm not talking, but I'm not talking about what Hoover did, right? That whole fight is what that fight is, right? And we know we're here. So anybody, and I keep saying this, anybody who is disillusioned to believe that we're not at war with them still, you just need to move out the way, right? But I'm talking about the fight within. That's where I'm talking about, the fight within, that where what we need What
And
we
Dr.
need.
Dawson, I understand you because I remember once when I was growing up, my father told me and my baby sister to do some work. And so he left, and we saw him coming back, and we had not done the work. And when he arrived, he said to us, I know you all have not done what I told you to do. He said, because your work speaks for you. And I tried to explain, and he said these words to me. He said, son, I cannot hear what you're saying for seeing what you have done. Then he went and got the rod of correction. So here's what that's what he did. He went and got the rod of correction. And here's what we have to do. We have to let our black leaders know they're only going to get one shot out of the box now. We cannot keep putting them in the position that we put them in when they are not doing the work that they need to do.
All right.
Well,
there you go.
Thank you so much, Commander.
And Commander, what do you say for those who right now are gearing up for the fight, to run for office, those who in their heart want to bring about the change that's needed in the black community? What do you say for those who know that they're coming into opposition from people who they're trying to help?
I tell them you got to gear up for the fight because you know it's there. And it's like going to a gunfight with no bullets or a gun.
There you go.
And it's really what we have to do as a people is be honest with ourselves first, and not just to get in the position because of the power that it brings, but really to help the people who are in need. And it's just like your hand. You can't take your hand and put it up to your face if your hand is not there. So look what has been done all of these years, not about longevity. It's like Martin Luther King says, not how long he lived, but how good he lives for the people that he's trying to help. If you look at people who have been in the political arena or any arena, even a preacher in the church, if he have not done anything for his members or the community, then it's time for him to go. He or she. So we got to look at the things that are. You know, you can't keep saying that, hey, listen, we're going to clean up that trash in that neighborhood, and year after year, month after month, it's still there. Especially when you have the power to do something about it. Black lives do matter. All lives matter. But we as a black race of people, what we bring to the table has been stolen and claimed by other races. So now it's time for us to stand up and do what's right. Give us a chance. Give you a chance. If you have never had the chance, and you haven't, the person that's in there haven't done anything in all these years, give those a chance who's coming up, who say they can do better. Why not give them a chance?
Here we go.
There you go. Because we
prove me wrong. If I tell you I can do the job, and you never give me an opportunity, how do you know I can? Right? Give me an opportunity.
Well, Commander, thank you for calling in.
Man, listen, you put me on the spot, but thank God for his blessing.
Hey, listen, man.
Brother, you knocked the ball out the park, Commander.
Y'all need to hush.
No.
How's the weather there?
Hey, it's beautiful out, Commander. Had to, you know how I like to be outside. So
Yes, I do.
had my landscaper come. He did the first cutting. Did the, leaf cleanup, man. My rose bushes are coming to life. I sat outside, had 2 cups of coffee. Life is good now, man. Life is good.
Right now.
And I tell you, I got 2.
Listen at this to your listening audience. Let's get this together. Let's go out and do things that's right, that need to be done to help each other. Don't sit back and say my vote don't count or what I do don't count. Let's get involved.
Hey, Commander, last thing, man. I got two more years here, And I think when I get 60, I'm not going to be able to stand or want to stand the snow. So I'm looking at Hilton Head, man. So my hope.
You'll be close to me.
Oh yeah. So that's where I'm looking to be in 2 years' time, man. So we'll be sitting on the porch somewhere sipping mint julep or something.
Well, Commander, I want to thank North Carolina for revitalizing Biden's campaign.
Oh, listen, we had to go do it. I tell you, and we're not finished yet.
Commander, I'm maybe dating you, but you said that you were in, at the time period with Eric's father. So you came from a period where blacks were more of a homogeneous group. We moved a lot as one to help each other. How do we bring that back?
You have to teach the younger generation. The Bible says, I call the old because they know the ways, the young because they're strong. Right. So you have to put, just like when you sit down to your table to eat, you don't wait to eat one dish at a time. You get a little bit of each dish and put on your plate. Right. So this is what we got to do. We got to talk to the young people. We got to engage them. And we as the older generation got to let the younger generation know when they're going wrong and when they're going right, but we have to support them, not downgrade them.
Right.
Show them how to get this thing done right.
How to fight.
Well, Dr. Sharif, if I could really had time to tell you the story of his life on what he thought in his head and what he tried to do in his community, because I was in the car with him for almost 14 years, just the two of us. And the things that we talked about, I haven't even told Eric. But he had a vision to help people. And there's not much of that that's left in the world today, whereas I got mine and you got yours, instead of coming together and make what each of us have bigger than it is.
Right. What good is it for me to prosper and grow when my people are still being oppressed and in chains?
There you go.
Amen.
Couldn't have said it any better.
Amen.
Well, God bless you, brothers. Y'all carry on. And excuse me for interrupting your
Oh, no, you didn't interrupt.
Oh, no.
You didn't interrupt, brother.
No, bro. You did your thing.
Yeah, thank you for thank you for calling in, Commander. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, see, it's good to have some guests on the show that, know how to do the dang-on thing, man. Love you, Commander.
Be nice, and when watermelon season come in, I'm going to ship you all some good watermelon.
Oh, there you go. There we go.
My wife raising her hand. Look at her ear hustling. She's supposed to be teaching her class. She ear hustling on the show. Look at.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Be blessed.
All right, you too, Commander. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Hey, we just brought Diane L. Murray Clements on the line. So,
good morning. Did I just miss a conversation about watermelon? Was it watermelon? I said, wait a minute. How did I miss this? Did he just say, okay, have a good day, bye?
he said when watermelon season comes, he's going to ship us up some watermelons from down south. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I hope it's the yellow meat from Georgia because I love those watermelons.
Oh, yeah. Sweet. Very sweet.
So good morning.
Good morning. So listen, I want to, and I posted this on my page. The young man in Chicago, Adam, what's his last name?
13-year-old?
Yeah. And I posted this on my page, and I said I need to get more information, right? And I'm looking. But from what I see on the videos, on all of the body cameras, I am, again, not that if more information comes out, my thoughts and opinions won't change. Right. But based on what I've seen so far, I think that that young man, it was tragic that he lost his life, but it was equally tragic that he made a series of fatal mistakes. I, for one, don't lump what happened to him, as tragic as it is, to George Floyd and Eric Garner and Tamir Rice and to the rest of those. And I'll tell you why. Again, based on what I saw and based on the evidence that's out so far. Let me finish, please.
Yeah.
Right. There was an apparent shooting that had taken place, which called the police to the scene somewhere around 2 a.m., right? So what the police officer knew upon coming to the scene at 2 a.m. was that there were guns present and being fired. When the officer arrived at the scene, a foot chase ensued. Now, in retrospect, we all know that Adam Toledo was 13. But I don't believe that the call that came through said there was a 13-year-old kid. So I think that the media playing up this 13-year-old thing is disingenuous. Because what the officer knew was that he was pursuing a person, not a 13-year-old, but a person, down a dark alley after having been called at around 2 a.m. to shots fired, right? Beyond that, and this is where I say fatal mistakes or actions by Adam Toledo. And he's got to bear some responsibility for this. He ran down a dark alley. And then beyond that, right, his goal was to ditch a gun that he had on his person. So he ran to a fence and shielded his right hand from the officer who was pursuing him so that he could reach and grab and toss his weapon. And after doing such, that hand that he had concealed from the officer turned to raise the hand. In that split second, and understand, and this is again where I think the media is being so disingenuous. You can take a still picture of him with his hands up, and that picture lasts forever. But the time that it took from him to expose that hidden hand to a raised position was less than a second. And so now this officer, who was called to a scene of shots fired, and now is pursuing a person. Let's not say a 13-year-old, because he didn't know that.
We don't.
No, he didn't know it.
Okay, so are you finished? Because you're about to repeat the same thing over it. Because you're doing what the media is doing. But I want to jump in real quick and then finish.
Go ahead.
I did not watch the video. I've talked to you before about this previously. I've listened to some other news media, black and non-black news media. And there is a specific type of training that officers are supposed to be able to think in split seconds. And of course, they're human beings. So a lot of things can go wrong when they could go right. You started off saying there were a lot of things that this young kid did wrong. Well, I'm not going to say that because I can't blame a victim for not knowing the proper way to not run away from the cop when you have or have not been proven guilty or may not have a gun, because I didn't see the video. So I'm not going to victim shame him for saying that he did several things incorrectly when handling the situation. I do know from listening to the other news media that the officers were called in because there was gunfire happening in the vicinity, and that's why they came. Again, when we're watching the video, we're always watching from the middle of the story. We never saw the beginning as when the cops arrived, what initially happened, how they perceived what was happening immediately, and decided who to chase and what was going on. So we don't know that. We missed all of that beginning of the story. We start right at the middle where an officer has now shot a 13-year-old kid. And in the light, in the realm of where we're living at right now, media is going to highlight that, whether the officer was right or whether the officer was wrong, whether the kid was right or wrong, because there's other things that you have to take into consideration that people are going to start thinking about when you start to blame the victim is, why is this 13-year-old out at night? Where's his parents at? Where's his guardians at? What's going on in this situation? Again, we're starting at the middle of the story, and we're making a decision on what we think should or should not be. Go ahead, Vincent.
I'm not going to victim shame because because you and Diane's right. The mind of a 13-year-old does not have the experience and wisdom to know what to do in a situation, especially when shots are fired. But I do know that when a police officer get a call about shots fired, there is a level of hypervigilance, flight or flight. And at 1.3 seconds to make a decision between life and death. And most of the time they're choosing their life and your death. So, and then, what really creeps me out is the simple fact of a 13-year-old at 2+ a.m., hanging out with a 22-year-old. There's a lot of things going on with this hyper sense of blacks being shot by police. There's also the understanding that, our system is being brought up as it is, infallible, and needs change. And I'm tired of seeing kids being shot by cops.
Right.
I'm tired of
So
adults being killed by cops.
Right.
I mean, you're killed by a cop now for having an air freshener in your car.
So so I'm going to take this caller, but I take umbrage because I think that holding people accountable for their actions isn't victim shaming, right? It's holding them accountable for their actions. He ran. He shouldn't have run. That's not victim shaming. He shouldn't have run. So to say that I say he shouldn't have run is victim shaming. I think for any other person who's engaged in illegal stuff, to say that if they take actions which are not consistent with law-abiding actions, to call them on that is victim shame, I think is a very dangerous thing. Caller, go.
So I agree. Good morning, guys. There's a 13-year-old kid out at 2:30 in the morning with a gun. And I hope this isn't perceived the wrong way, right? But there's been a lot of those 13 to 16-year-old children out at 2 and 3:30 in the morning with a gun who killed black children, Spanish children. And if we start I just feel like, this is my opinion, that it's very dangerous to get into the space of this anytime, anywhere, if something happens, if a police officer is involved, then they're just wrong from the gate. What was a 13-year-old kid doing with a gun, right? And what were they, when you hear, so the police were called to a scene, and a 13-year, and not even an age, and there's gunfire, right? We can't forget that there's a lot of murders in our community where we're murdering one another, and it's usually very young children killing other young children, and so that still exists. And just because we're in this hyper-vigilant moment of police, we have to take responsibility. But if you were chasing somebody at 13-year-old who definitely doesn't have the wherewithal to think clearly, isn't isn't adult enough in their theories, but they're running around toting guns in our communities, killing our children. So this one, I just don't think that we should automatically make this a police brutality issue until it shakes out and we hear it, because even the family's lawyer got on television the other day and said her argument was, yeah, he had the gun basically, right? But at the moment that they shot, he didn't have a gun.
Right.
I don't know what that means. So I don't know.
Yeah, and so part of it for me, Jody, is because because this is the space that I went to immediately after watching it, and then I watch it again, and then I watch these compilations, right? Because you got the body cameras, and then you got a camera across the street that actually showed a weapon on the other side of the fence, right? And so then you got a body camera from another officer as they approached, and from that body camera you can see the weapon on the other side of the fence, right? So I'm watching all of this, and then I immediately call my family members who are in law enforcement, and some retired now, and friends, and I start talking to them. And then as they're explaining to me what they experience and how their heart rate goes up and how engaged they are in moments like that, it took me to a space of saying, you know what? If that officer was my brother, my father, my son, my uncle, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? See, so let us not sit on the couch with our feet up and look at this still image of this kid with his hands up and be played by the media right now. Right? Let us not do that. Let us not do that, because that's exactly what's happening right now. And that's why I'm holding them responsible and accountable for this. They're emotionalizing this thing.
I was to say, right, to not allow them either to make comparisons and contrasts.
Yes.
I hate to say this, but I'm being honest. This is how I honestly feel with Spanish people in my family and all of that good stuff, right? Let's not let them make those comparisons and contrasts. This is not George Floyd issue. This isn't even the young man that was killed last week in the same space issue. This is not the same issue, right? He had a gun.
That's right.
Floyd had not a gun, right? The young man that we saw last week killed and murdered did not have a gun.
That's right.
And we can't be...
Eric Garner didn't have a gun.
I don't care how offended people get, right? We can't keep letting people jump in, because guess what? They'll treat them better than they treat us. And they'll go farther than we do, and then we're back stuck there. So no, I can't and maybe it is cold as we are as a people because of what we see. And no, you just can't jump in on it. You got to have some credibility before I allow you to just jump in and run with an issue that's been plaguing our community, the Black community, for way too long, for us to start being so willing to say this is another George Floyd moment, because that was not a George Floyd moment, no matter what anyone said. That's it. Done.
Right. We're not talking about somebody being, where this situation where you can exonerate some things, being in compliance, not having a weapon, not doing anything. But we're looking at, gunfire, and police do not bring a taser to a gunfight. In fact, they don't even bring a taser when you got an air freshener. So we're looking at a lot of different issues. We shouldn't over emotionalize this. I think we should, wait for the full report, because I watched the videotape on a couple of different news channels, and I like to see the full thing of the body cam, because it was like a split second of this kid turning around, seeing a flashing of a gun, and the shot was fired. So, I like to wait and see. Now, look, if this was a justifiable shoot, then yeah. But, if it was a situation where, possibly they planted the gun and there right now isn't evidence that support them planting a gun, then, I'd like to see that, before we get all up in arms about it and upset. Now, don't get me wrong. It's tragic. And one thing I pray that no parent experiences is the death of their child by either way, natural cause or accident or anything, because that is probably one of the most greatest horrors that a parent can feel. Yet, the situation of him being out at 2:30 in the morning, hanging out with a 22-year-old man and guns and gunplay, that doesn't fit well with me.
It's a recipe for disaster, right? That's what it is. And so we see what happened, and then and then that whole community. And here's the other piece that gets me. And we have to decide where we want to be on some of these things, right? So, was he a good kid?
I'm not laughing at that. But
Was he a good kid? See, because I want you to understand this, right? Look at the number of murders in Chicago, the number of shootings in Chicago.
And listen,
right?
So ready? Because it'll take us into so many spaces, right? Other spaces that need to be fixed, or how they failed Black and brown communities, right? And I don't mind going there, right? So I don't mind saying, every time we accept that failing school districts failing our children, and then you wonder why, our children are going berserk in the streets, that is that failure, right? When you're talking about 40 years, 50 years of failed school districts all across this country, Black and brown people, when you see those children in the streets killing each other, acting like animals, right? That is what it is. That is that failed school district. So we can go in those spaces, right? But we can't defend them. We can't, like you said, we can't be walking around saying, oh, Boo Boo was great. He was a good kid. If Boo Boo was brandishing a gun that could kill your kid or my kid, or shoot the walls, we've seen it happen 50 million times in our communities, because they have no business with a gun in their hand. It becomes touchy. It becomes a weird situation. It is the failure that we see, that this country has failed our children, but this is not, because I want to be able to still believe that there's good cops out here. And I know, I have to know, because I have some in my family, right? So every cop is not a bad cop. Every cop is not out here trying to kill us as a community. And yeah, we have some children out here that are like, that are rough.
But Jody, here's the issue for me.
I take it extremely personal. The inabilities of my child results to me is the failure of me being their parent.
Right, but here's the issue for me.
So
right?
No,
think about this for a second.
This is what I mean, right? So, and I've done this, when I ran for board. So I've done the numbers, right? It's been a while, right? But and guess what? There's failures as parents too. But this is what I'm saying to you: when you live in a brown and Black neighborhood, and you go to a school where it isn't teaching you anything, in North. We have children that graduate from high school every day and read on a third grade level. See, a child should never be able to make it that far without some interceding and someone coming in. And no, but they pass our children through. They know they're failing. They know they're not learning. They're not right. I can go into all different places. We could talk about the lead in the water, and you wonder why children are running around and have no thought and theory, have no conscience, have no nothing. We can run it there, right? You can run it and throw in, check this out. What if your parent is a drug addict, right? And you go to school every day and they treat you like you're trash, right? And they're feeding you lead in your damn water, right? How in the hell do you have a shot at anything for being out at 2:30 in the night with a 20-year-old man and a gun in your hand, right? So while I don't have a problem beating on parents or saying they need to stand up, right? Or because some of those parents that you're calling a failure are also just uneducated themselves, right? And they don't know how to fight for their children. They don't know. They're so glad. Some of them, this is the first kid in the history of our family that graduated from Week High School. They don't care that they haven't learned shit. They're just like, oh my God, my baby made it, right? There's a lot of those issues. We can run those issues through. I could run them. We can run them. But it is not just a household, right? It is the total failure of this government to do what it promised to do. And I don't want to get there. All I'm just saying is it's a lot. It's a lot in our community.
So, Jody,
I don't want to beat on that baby.
So, Jody, saying what you're saying, where do we start to fix the solution? Because there have been programs that have been put in place by government to buy back guns. There have been programs to educate people about the dangers of guns in the elementary schools and why you shouldn't feel as though that you have to protect yourself from being bullied with a gun. So we've gone through all of those different things. Government has done that. Parents have been
government
to
has
meetings.
to fix the system now. Ready?
Right.
So you want to fix it? You want to fix it? You want to change your neighborhood inside out? It's only one way to fix it. Fix that education system.
Yes.
Make it equal. Make it equal and give equality. That will change the entire hood. If education was just minimally to what they promised us, to what our constitutional right is, that every kid in that system in North New Jersey has a constitutional right to an equal and quality education. If they just made it minimal, I swear to you, guaranteed.
So,
don't even need to do a study.
Right.
But
Jody, wait.
You just said that we are supposed to have this constitutional right to education. What is equal to us in our community? Because we're equally getting screwed.
Right. So listen.
Are they not doing what they're supposed to
listen.
do?
So there are two things that I think are required, right? And I don't know which one to put first. Like it is the disease that it is, right? Like it's the plague. And then, but secondly, we need to find a way to remove these children from some of these abusive homes. We have to be able to get them out, right? So when we talk about these socially, so we've, and like, I think that I don't think that we're understanding how detrimental these socially transmitted diseases are. So you got the kid in the house, right? Just inundated and just surrounded by this diseased environment. Then they go off to school, right? And then they're around and in this diseased environment, right? Then they go back home and then it encompasses them. Then they go back to school. I mean, we got to really understand that. And then so when we look outside and we see them in the neighborhoods, right? And the neighborhood now becomes a manifestation of that disease, right? The filth on the streets, the prostitution, the drugs, the violence, all of that. And then even the ones who have not yet been diseased, I'm talking about the children, they're now exposed to that disease, right? And then it just continues. So we have to have a way of extricating them from those diseased homes, and then we've got to freaking blow up the schools. I don't mean figuratively speaking, not literally.
In terms of what Jody was saying with education, I agree. Yes, we do need to fix the education because
right. So we know that already.
Children, but can I please?
Yeah, but I don't want to repeat the things that we already talked about.
Influence on a child's education, should it not be their parent?
Right, but if you have a parent, say, but this is my point to you. So if you, God damn it, if you've got a parent that grew up in that same environment, or let's take the kids now, because they're going to be parents at some point. Some of them already are. And so now when you put on that person, on that child who grew up in that environment, who grew up in that diseased home, who grew up in that diseased school system, who grew up in that diseased neighborhood, and now all of a sudden you say to them, hey, because you're now a parent, you're required to do these things. Really?
Okay, well, let's look at it. My great-grandmother had a 6th grade education.
Different.
But it did not stop her in her environment and her lack of education from encouraging her children
Different.
to finish high school.
Let me ask you a question, Vincent. I'm going to ask you a question, Vincent. How many drugs were in your grandmother's community? How many crack babies were in your grandmother's community? I'm asking you a question, Vincent. Answer my question.
Let me answer your question, okay? Because I cannot tell you how much drugs was back then in 1930s. But I can tell you that there were drugs. And there were bad neighborhoods, just as they are now.
Oh, Vincent.
It's not the environment, it's how you react to that environment.
Vincent, stop it.
Don't sit up here and play, okay, product of the environment. There are a lot of people who come out of terrible, horrible conditions, yet make something of themselves.
Vincent, but what I'm saying to you, Vincent,
falls victim to the environment.
Vincent, but what I'm trying to explain to you is this, and I really think because I don't know when the last time it was you were in one of those environments, right? But what I'm saying to you is this: it's like a patient who is stage 1 cancer versus a patient who's in stage 4, right? Our communities are stage 4 in terms of how the disease, how the cancer has now just spread. I'm saying that though there may have been using cancer as an example, though there may have been cancerous cells in the community that your grandmother was in, it wasn't stage 4, Vincent. It was not stage 4.
Eric, to answer that, I can say it simply like this. When I do drug abuse counseling,
oh God,
and we do the group counseling, the one thing that they talk about is people, places, and things. In your environment, the people you're around, all that has an influence. But the biggest thing that they say is that you can move wherever you want, but you still take you with you.
Vincent.
You can move out of that neighborhood, but you still have those diseases with you that you let affect you. So no matter wherever you go, it's going to be there. So we can't sit up here and say, oh, no, it's their neighborhood and it's their environment. We have to say that they have some emphasis. The person who has the last chance to do an effective change on your life is you.
Yeah. Okay.
You sit up here and give people a freaking pass for their bad behavior.
Oh, no. No, see, I think that you, no. See, I think
we all have to take some level of accountability of the wrongs in our life.
Okay, ramble on, Vincent. But what I'm saying to you is this, and so I think that you don't hear me, right? I'm not saying at all that they shouldn't be accountable, right? I said, but I started off by saying, and then you told me I was victim shaming Adam.
No.
Right? Wait. You said.
Out of my mouth.
Yes, you did. I'll replay it. You said no. After Diane said it, you said I'm not going to sit there and victim shame. I heard you. Right.
I didn't say that you were victim shaming.
So now I held him accountable. Right? I held him accountable, and I'm saying I hold them all accountable, but I also understand. I understand the environment. I understand the ingredients that help to make these things up, help to make up these young people into what they wind up being, right? So we need to figure out how to remove them from that. Otherwise, we know through statistics that it's going to continue to happen. We know that. So I've never said, you can rewind 4.5 years of this. I've never said that we don't hold them accountable. But I am also saying that we've got to hold the neighborhood accountable. We got to hold the politicians accountable. We got to hold the faith-based communities accountable. We got to hold the nonprofits accountable. We got to hold them all accountable. That's what I say. So in that end, when we continue to drive our children to these factories of death, right? We're accountable. We're accountable. When we keep electing these do-nothing politicians, see, you can't just skip over that and go to the tragic end result. You have to look at all the things that led up to it, all the failings of us. And I talk about it.
Then we're saying the same thing.
So I never say don't hold them accountable. I'm saying don't just sit there on your stoop and shake your finger at them. Because there's a role we all play in it.
So let's clarify the failure, right? Every year, I haven't been there in New Jersey for 3 years, but the whole time I was in the school district, every failing, let's say high school, let's say Malcolm X Shabazz, Weequahic High School, Barringer High School, Westside High School, hundreds and hundreds of children graduate, right? So, at minimum, using Vincent's theory, right? These parents are, as sad as you think they are, these parents are getting their children through high school, right? And that's big to some families in impoverished neighborhoods. Some of those parents never graduated from high school, right? So they do the best they can at engineering their children through high school. Now let's talk about some educational failures, right? So if you don't know that because you didn't graduate from high school, but you make sure your baby gets to school every day. Some of those kids that graduate from from these high schools are graduating with 3.2, 3.8 GPAs, right? And read on a third grade level. So they take SATs, they take ACT exams, and they can't get into colleges, right? They get into Essex County. So many of them start at Essex County, and they don't make it out of their freshman year. And then they're on the street. And then they join a gang. Then they get a gun. And so many children in North died at that, right? That's a problem with the system of education. It has failed black and brown children across this country forever. Oprah did a study years ago, a week-long study where she did, let's go into the poorest neighborhoods and see how their children fare when they go to college. It was children that were graduating top of their class, right, and was failing out of college, but they were graduating at the top of their class. She was even able to show that children, white children in suburbia, were graduating the top of their class, had the best advantages, and were going to colleges and were failing out, right? So this system in this country, be you black or white, poor or rich, is a failing educational system to begin with. It right now, it doesn't. So many countries are far and beyond us in education to begin with. Now, tag on a little bit of poverty to that. The mother doesn't know. People can't feed their children the perils of what poverty brings, and it just kills your argument, Vincent. This system, this educational system was designed not to educate black and brown people. What in the hell made people think that once they allowed us in the door, that they were going to do anything above substandard? Because they didn't even think you deserve to be educated from the very beginning. So that's what you see in neighborhoods when you see a 13-year-old with a gun.
Well, see, I can't. See, Jody, for me, it's hard to equate the education system and placed by government in both local and state and federal. It's hard for me to equate the educational system to how that ends up them failing and having a 13-year-old at 2:30 at night with a gun in his hand. Can you link that for me?
Okay, so you can play with this 13-year-old all you want to, right? Those are listen. There are some I'm not gonna argue that, where in the hell was his mother that he was outside at 2:30 in the morning, or where was his father? And we can't get into, I can't get into those spaces, right? This may have been one of those tragic. Again, I'm not defending parents saying we hold no responsibility for our children. I'm just saying to you, in large part, right? In large part, a system and a community is not conducive to healthy children is a system and a community not conducive to healthy children. Like Eric said, whether it's your mom's not doing this, right? Then you go to school every day. It's kids that go to school every day. Mother is a crackhead. They've said to themselves, I will not live that life. So I'm going to go to school every day because at the very least, I hear that on a radio show or I see a commercial that says education is my way out. It is black and brown children in this country that go to school every day and don't even eat and still go to school every freaking day because they think that that's the way out.
But you know what though? But I want to stop for a second. Here's the challenge, right? That I'm facing having this conversation, because it goes back to rugged individualism, right? Where there's the absence in terms of one side of this discussion, an absence of what is, meaning the environment and all of these things that we're talking about that play at odds with black children, black families being successful, right? And saying that in spite of all of that, right, there is that if you just worked hard enough, if you just did these things, if you just did this is going to happen, or you can and I can't help but go back to Dr. King when he says that is cruel. That it is a cruel thing. I think that what Jody and what I am talking about is the bootlessness of these people, right? Through the lack of programs, through the lack of willingness and desire by a system to treat us with dignity, right? And to provide an educational system. So those are the signs of being bootless. And the conversation that seems to be had here is, well, but they should still, in spite of all that, pick themselves up by their bootstraps. And we should hold them accountable for the fact that they're not reaching down to pick themselves up. And we're saying they don't have boots.
Listen, Eric, it doesn't go into rugged individualism because that has so many, it means so much to a lot of different people. Yet the ability to say that, or have a vision to say that I can build myself past my environment, my situation to make things better for myself and family is a total different dynamic. And different psyches handle that differently. Now, but to say this, okay, that, you know, people who have nothing tend to get nothing is a half truth, because there are people who have nothing that build up to something. It's all I'm saying. And there are people who have something that destroy it to nothing. That pendulum swings both sides. But in terms of keeping it in the content of, you know, the failings that we're looking at, and there are a lot of failings that we're looking at, and a young 13-year-old black child out at 2:30 in the morning with a gun who puts himself in a position to be killed.
Well, first he wasn't a black child, right? He was...
Okay, child of color.
Right.
For the sake of argument.
Here we go.
Okay, that he puts himself in that position to be killed. That's, you know, there are a lot of issues that we have to look at.
Right.
And when we're looking at it, let's look at when we're looking at it and evaluating it. I don't want to point the finger on everyone else. I want to point the finger at me and say, what can I do? Oh, by the way, Eric, to answer your question, every Wednesday and Friday, I do Zoom meetings and Zoom classes, volunteering my time in impoverished neighborhoods in Philadelphia, talking to high school kids to get scholarships, to grow and to move.
Right. And why do you do that? And why do you do that there and not in affluent areas?
Well, one, because in affluent areas, there's a large percentage of them that don't need it.
Right, there we go.
Okay.
Yep. Right, but that's my whole point, right? So there needs to be intervention. You realize there needs to be intervention, right? That something needs to, because of what you see in those areas that you intervene in, you realize that even with what it is that they may be trying to do themselves, that there is something else that is required in order to change the trajectory. That's my point.
What I see that is required in them, and a lot of them, is the simple fact of an example.
I'm not saying, no, whatever it is. I'm not arguing about what it is. I'm saying, but you recognize, which is the point that I think that Jody and I are making, that you recognize that the current trajectory in that community is such that there needs to be intervention of some sort. Right, and that's all I'm saying. And so, right, and that's what I'm getting at. So minus that intercedence, right? You know statistically that based on the current trajectory, they might be headed in that direction. And so you go to intercede. That's the only point that we're making. That there needs to be we need to intercede in the school system. We need to intercede in the households. We need to intercede in all of those areas, because the current trajectory based on data and history is that if we don't, they will go down that path. And I'm not saying don't hold them accountable. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, but we all know, because we see it, that there needs to be intercession at all levels. And so when there's not, then we have to hold ourselves accountable too, because we see what's going to happen. So just to sit there, do nothing, and then shake your finger at them when it happens, I think is a horrible thing. And so many people do it. That's it. And so whether we're holding it like Commander Forbes said, we need to, with regard to these do nothing politicians, right? We need to have standards for them, and we need to hold them accountable.
Well, here is the mechanics I've seen on the do nothing politicians. They don't do anything until you do something, and then they want to jump on the bandwagon.
Oh, I don't dispute that. Yes, that's exactly what they do, right? They lack courage.
Yes.
Right?
So I think one of the things that we have to do in terms of, as you say, intercede, is that we have to, look at it, and as John Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country or your community. Let's look at where the problem is and see what we can do, how we can put our imprint to make that change.
Yeah. So I just don't want, in the middle of this, this thing that's happening with Adam Toledo, to distract us, and we need to stay focused. So on to George Floyd. So the jury is going to be charged. I don't know if they've been charged yet, but they're going to be charged today.
They just were.
were?
In fact, the prosecution is doing their closing arguments now. Okay,
and then they will go to deliberate. Right. And I said this at the outset, and I hear all of the pundits in the media saying it now, right? That you just got to have one juror on there who, looks at the evidence, right? Or brings their personal stuff into that space and says, you know what, I'm digging my heels in. It could have been a number of things. I'm not going to take this man's life because that other man lost his life. I don't have faith in the system, because I think that back to the same thing, right? All of those jurors are products of their environments. And when we have the conversation about what's baked into the DNA of this country, right? It's hard for me to believe that you won't have at least one juror, right? The odds are that you'll have at least one juror who will dig his or her heels in this case.
Well, Diane, you want to go? Diane?
Oh, she may be with a client.
Okay. All right. I've been following the trial close. I went through the whole process of the prosecution, how they looked, the defense, how they looked. And there were some hiccups, of course, on the prosecution, and the judge shut it down with entering in carbon monoxide because, he was, breathing in the fuel. But to everything that I have seen, it points to the fact that, everything has a level of contribution to his death. But the underline is that, with all those contributions, the significant sign of his death was the simple fact of asphyxiation caused by the knee on his neck. Now, they have broken that down to a third grade level. And if someone finds him to be one person to be found not guilty, then that's willful ignorance. Willfully ignorant. I mean, willfully, when all the experts are saying that, no, this is how he died.
No, all of the experts, no, see, be clear. All of the experts didn't say that. The experts that came on from the defense didn't say that. So you can't say all the experts. When
they got cross-examined, they said that, yes.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
I watched the trial.
I posted
one of them when they got cross-examined. Did they say? And the prosecution brought up to the fact that so you're telling me that the cause of death was this, and so what is it? The cause of death was a heart attack. They said yes. Okay, would he have had the heart attack if he had enough oxygen going into the heart? Well, they said no, he wouldn't. Okay, so what restricted him from having that oxygen? Well, the knee on the neck. Okay, we rest. That's what it was like.
No.
The other one came up there and said that it was his drug involvement. He said, well, okay, doesn't toxicity level of narcotics, doesn't that vary from different person? He says, yes. Why is that? Yeah. Because each person has a level of tolerance. Okay, well, in the video, he had that level of tolerance. He was happy-go-lucky. So why he didn't die then? Well, because he's reached that level of tolerance. He says, okay, so he would still be alive if it was not for asphyxiation, restricting oxygen. Yeah. Well, possibly. Okay, it rests.
Yeah. So when you listen, I'm not, because I'm doing the show, so I don't have an opportunity right now to listen to the closing arguments by the defense attorney, but when you listen to the closing arguments from the defense attorney will highlight all of what his experts said, right? And what I'm saying to you is this again, that his experts came in and all of them said that that there were many contributing factors to the death of George Floyd. Right? Ranging from the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning to fentanyl and opiates in his system, to an enlarged heart, to a number of other factors, right? So they brought those things up. Right, that's what they did, and then on the other side, the experts, right, brought up the fact that it was solely the knee on George Floyd's neck, the compression of his lungs because of the prone position that he was in while handcuffed, and his inability to breathe, right? So they brought that up. I'm saying that all experts, though, were not in agreement. And so now, when you have these jurors go in and listen to all experts, because all experts were not in agreement, I believe that there is a great likelihood, given again the fact that baked into the very DNA of this country, right, is a value for white life and a devaluing of black life. And so when you look and say, well, okay, we have these white jurors who live in this system, were educated by this system, were narrated to by a media who perpetuates the marginalization of blacks in America and supports in large part the corporation of white supremacy and the value of white life. Right? They grew up in this. I believe that there is a great likelihood that there will be at the very least one juror, because those are the odds, one that will dig his or her heels in and lean on the testimony of the experts who disagree with the prosecution.
Yes, and that's what I call willful ignorance, where you will willfully ignore or be ignorant to the fact that this black man's life matter, that you willfully will ignore the fact that he is a human being. He is a father, a son, a brother, that you willfully ignore that simple fact that all life is precious, to the point where you believe that this white life, who gallantly, cavalierly takes the life of a black man, is far superior. Willful ignorance. And then you would vote for that. But other than that, that's the only thing that I can see. But I hope that you're wrong. I hope that they come back in 15 minutes, find him guilty, and he's on his way to jail.
Yeah.
In which I hope he runs into a whole lot of black people that want to make him their Mitch, because that's what he deserves.
Well, I want to get us.
And I'm over emotional on it.
Yeah, I'd like us to be out of the business of hoping. Right, but we got to do the work, right, to be in the space of knowing, right. But we're in the business of hoping that that this happens, but understanding the chances of it not happening because of this being baked into the very DNA. I was making my trips to the store this morning at 6-7 o'clock.
Oh, by the way.
Yep.
Dre Sandrod, no, I'm not the savior. But thank you for the compliment.
Oh, I don't see the comments in the thread.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why I don't see them. Let me refresh. Oh, yeah, I don't see any comments. I wonder why I don't see them. But I do see that there are 11, so why I don't see them, I don't know. Anyway. Yes, Diane, while I'm trying to look at the comments.
I don't know I do not believe that there's going to be justice in this particular case for many different reasons, because the same people who are prosecuting and sitting as a judge and people who have been chosen on the jury are particularly people who don't look like this guy, and I don't think they're going to be able to connect with him. Even with all the evidence that has been given from both sides. Like you said, all they need is one person to be convinced that it could have been carbon monoxide. It could have been anything else but what he was doing. So yeah, that's my stance. I don't think it's gonna. And even if it comes back with the jury where this guy is convicted, this officer is convicted, I don't think it's going to be the satisfaction of what the people want, because the conviction is just the beginning. And we've talked about it before. The laws have to be changed. So while you have these politicians that you stated before who have no spine, but use the public for their vote and don't give anything back to the public in forms of education, like we talked about previously, or protection under the law, until these laws have changed, which means the people have to change in order for the laws to change. I don't see that it's going to make a difference, and I don't think the people are going to get the results that they want out of this. So if you get a conviction, that's it, and they'll walk away, and then there'll be another case that'll come back, and it'll start all over again.
Yeah. So hold on to your hats, people. And oh, I see the comments. Oh, I see why I don't see them. Got it. But hold on to your hats, folks, because I don't have faith. I don't have faith. There was something else that I was going to talk about. I don't remember. Oh, Diane, I got you on the line. Talk to us about your. So Diana Murray Clements is running to be the first Black American woman in the assembly in what district in Union?
In New Jersey, in Union County, which would cover Union, Hillside, Elizabeth, and Roselle. So yes, I would be the first Black woman ever to hold this office of the inception of the state of the New Jersey. Of New Jersey, and also the first one to have representation in Hillside since 1974. So we haven't had any representation in our town. So what does that mean to other people? So what it means is when you have somebody on the state level as an assembly person, those are the people that gather together and create the laws for the entire state. And laws like the cannabis law that was passed some time ago, that happens to go out of assembly and go to the vote for the people. So they create those laws. They create laws to stop discrimination when it comes to education. They create laws on access to funding for small businesses and minority and women-owned businesses. So when you have businesses like myself and you started your business, I guess you could say you bootstrapped it yourself out of your own funding because you weren't able to get a loan from a bank that said that you weren't viable to get a loan because they didn't think you would have a business for so long. You have now people that can voice for you and help you get access, because that's what it's about. It's about access, and that's what happens when you elect people. It's not just for the laws, but it's access to what's happening, the resources in government, so that you can improve your quality of life. Whatever your quality of life looks like, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's a better educational system and more resources coming down to the school, whether it's healthcare and putting things in place that people have are allowed to have free healthcare in the state of New Jersey. So all of these things come out of the assembly where laws are created. So that's what I'm doing. Our election is June 8th here in Union County. Again, I represent Roselle, Elizabeth, Union, and Hillside. And like Eric said, I will be the first African American woman to hold that office ever. So I'm running on the ticket with Jamel Holly, who has left the seat of assembly and is now running for the Senate to be the senator to represent us. And he will be the first African-American man to ever hold that seat. And then we also have Kristen Belize, who is out of Elizabeth, running for assembly alongside me. And he will be the first Hispanic Puerto Rican to run, or Ecuadorian to run for that position and hold that position. So there's a lot of first and history making that's happening with our ticket. So we're excited. We've been out there. We've been talking to people, knocking on doors. And it's been exciting to talk to people and hear, what's going on in their community and the stuff that their local government has not been able to get over to them, the resources that they need.
So, Diane, can I ask you a few questions?
If you need to, sure.
First, my hope is that you are successful, because I think you are a great person. I think that your heart's always in the right place. You're looking to help to bring changes to people, and you have that rare, beautiful ability and bravery to speak truth to power. What would you find to be the challenge in being elected to make those effective changes to improve the quality of life?
Well, I don't think there's a challenge. I think the biggest thing that I have to, and other people who go into the assembly seat have to be reminded of, is that it's a collective. So I can go in with a million different types of ideas on how I can improve things in those 4 cities that I represent, but my ideas will also flow over into other cities. And we have to, as other assembly people, be able to work together collaboratively, whether we're Democrats or Republicans or independents, to have a uniformed conception on how we want to move forward in the state.
What would be your first task that you'd like to take on to improve?
Housing and education. Housing is a big deal for me, especially in my area. Senior housing. There's a concern where there's not enough senior housing. Seniors want to stay in the community in which they've been living, but they can't afford to sell their houses and go somewhere else because they want to stay, but there's not enough senior housing available for them in the community. So senior housing development, affordable housing is like at the top of the list as well. I mean, if nothing else, COVID has shown that all of us are pretty much equal. People are having housing issues when it comes to foreclosures, trying to stay in their homes. Municipal, local levels are trying to increase the tax.
Rebates?
No, not the rebates, the opposite. They're trying to increase tax, not reimbursements, but they're trying to do tax sales. I'm sorry. They're trying to increase tax sales so they can collect more dollars from people, but they're trying to collect tax dollars from people who can barely hold on to their houses because they lost their job because of COVID, because of illness. So housing is a big issue and a concern. And people that are renters, you know, I'm a landlord, and I've been lucky that my tenants have been able to stay employed and been able to pay their rent. But if they couldn't pay their rent, that's now a trickle-down effect on me, and then I can't pay the mortgage. So I'm losing, they losing, everybody's losing. So that's a big thing that we have to really address is affordability, housing, education, and bringing some jobs back into the communities. And that means education and internships. I've talked to other people, and I remember we talked about this some time ago, maybe 2 years ago, when I went to Paris, and they have a program there, and it's widespread through Europe, that they have these apprenticeship programs. We went on a tour to Chocolate Factory or something like that, and they talked about how they started their business because they were an apprenticeship in another business. And that taught them how to get their chocolate business going. And we don't have that here. We need to create something because everybody's not going to go to college. Everybody's not college bound. Everybody's entrepreneur. But people need other skills that they can fall back on. And you have noticed in COVID, many people have fallen back on other skills they didn't know they had because they're trying to supplement their income because they're losing their jobs, so jobs were cutting back. So those are the top things that I'm definitely going to be working towards.
In terms of the housing senior shortage, do you find a majority of the drought is caused by this new wave in a lot of areas that you represent because of area regentrification?
No, our areas are not, so I would not call our areas have not been regentrified in our areas. We've always been a multicultural community, Hispanics, all types, Cubans, Colombians, Africans, Haitians, Black Americans, Caucasians, Irish, Italians. We're actually, our communities, Hillside Union, Elizabeth and Roselle, people can definitely say we are a melting pot of many different cultures. So that we don't have a problem of with people regentrifying. There are areas in our communities that need to be improved upon, and that's aesthetic-wise. But not regentrification is not our concern. However, when the rents start to go up because people can't afford it and they're moving out, you know, it's just, you know, new people are going to move in. So, but we don't have that now.
Got it.
Good. And in terms of education, what's your plan to improve that?
Well, improving I think being a black woman, the first thing I would have to say is there has to be a true educational system that teaches people who we are. And that has to flow through the system. And I think if that flowed through the system of who little black girls are and little black boys are, and they knew and could identify with who they were, they would respond differently in many different ways, and then other people will respond differently to us. I think the biggest problem that we have in America, not just New Jersey, is people don't lead with their heart. So when they don't lead with their heart, they start off with their prejudices and what they see on TV as what they think people are. And I think that's the big disclaimer that we have.
Well, listen, like I said, much success. Do you have a website or somewhere where people can contact you or make donations?
Absolutely, I do. They can. So the website is coming up. We're just waiting for the last approval from a third party for us to accept donations. But until then, you can always call into my office at 908-686-4609. And I can give you the formal address where you can mail a check and get your contact information if you want to donate in any other kind of way. And also volunteers. We're looking for volunteers to come out and help because this is a group effort. When we change and when we want laws to change, we have to have people on board who are thinking the same way as us and want to see more positive changes in the community. So we definitely welcome all types of volunteers, whether you're able to make phone calls from home, to call other people, whether you want to come out and knock on the doors with me, by all means, you're welcome. Yesterday I did 11,702 steps. So I think that's a little over, 2.5 miles or maybe 5 miles, I forget.
Yeah.
Well, either way, if you looking to walk, to lose some weight, come out there and walk and talk to me because I'm sweating, I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And I get to talk to a lot of different people that I don't normally talk to. And what's different is even with COVID, people are still willing to open the door and have a conversation about what's going on in the community, what their needs may be. And they don't always necessarily have a problem or concern. They're just excited that somebody's actually coming to see what their thoughts are.
What are their thoughts?
So Hillside, local concerns are some of the local representatives have not been out, or they've gotten bad feedback from town hall, weren't able to get things done, don't understand why things are happening in the way that they're happening. One of the biggest concerns is when we start construction, and I know Eric can understand this, construction that's going on throughout all of the cities. People are not notified that the construction is going until they get into traffic and they're stuck in the traffic.
Oh Lord! And Eric's throwing cranberries at him.
And I must say, I kind of feel the same way because I came out my driveway this morning and looked down. Now I have to look up and down the street to see which way they got the road blocked off because they're replacing the fire hydrants in the town. So, you can't have everything, but that would help because it's like a maze. So the bottom of my street is closed off, and I go to the top of the street. I go 2 more blocks, and that street is turned off. So now I got to figure out, I'm trying to get to 22, but do I turn back and go into North and go through Elizabeth Avenue? It's very confusing to try and figure out. But yeah, I think that's the biggest qualms that people have. And people are ready for their kids to go back to school.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Kids out the house. I talked to a parent yesterday. She said she can't wait for them to go back to school, but she's also disappointed in the school system and how it's been set up when teachers are out. And I'm talking specifically Hillside. When teachers are out, the kids are just getting the lessons. The parents don't even know. There's no substitute. They just shoot them an email with the information. So they're disappointed at that, and they understand and know that their kids are suffering. So their kids are not picking up, not learning the way they were, when they're interacting in the school. So that's a big deal. And I don't think that the educational system right now, especially specifically in Hillside, is going to be ready for the transition to bring all of these kids back, because I can see the transition of them working virtually from home, and they're losing at that. So I don't see the educational system immediately turning around in September, because they're gonna have to really step on board. But Jersey City went back last week.
Yeah.
So my cousin is a principal in Jersey City, and she says she's been there in the building the entire time. Administration has been in the entire time. She said last week or this past week the teachers came back, and now they'll be in the building. She said they were they were happy to be back. But they're still concerned about what's going to happen when the whole school is now has a school full of rooms full of kids. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So I just got a notice on my phone. It said effective April 19th, all New Jerseyans age 16 plus are eligible for vaccination appointments. And this is, I guess, a segue for me for the because I mentioned it on my page. I don't know that we talked about it on the show. Maybe we did. I don't know. I'm getting old. But this whole Johnson & Johnson thing pissed me off. Well,
Did your stock go down? Because their stock went down when they announced that.
no. Not because of that. But it pissed me off because 7 million, at that point, almost 7 million people have been vaccinated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And 6 people out of the 7 million people that have been vaccinated experience these clots, these rare clots.
So, Eric, with that said, if it's only 6 people, then why do you think Johnson & Johnson will pull back on just 6 people?
I believe, given the climate of transparency, or the need for transparency, and the hesitancy that exists, and the lack of trust, and all those things, I think that they overreacted. I think that everybody overreacted in an attempt to say, see, we're showing you everything. Right? But I want you to understand this. 1 in a million. There's a 1 in a million. Greater than 1 in a million.
No, less than 1 in a million.
I'm sorry, less than 1 in a million. Right? No, great. If there's 6 million, well, help me with the math.
7 million vaccinated. There's 6 that got blood clots.
Right.
So we're looking at...
That's right. Fewer than 1 in a million. Right.
Less than 1 in a
So
million.
now, understand this. You have a greater chance of getting a blood clot if you're a woman, if you're on a birth control. You have even greater chance of blood clot if you have the birth control patch and dying. And the FDA is not pulling that off the market.
Well, no, you got a greater chance of being struck by lightning twice.
Well, you got a greater chance of being...
You got a greater chance of hitting the next $2 billion lottery.
All right. You got a greater chance of dying in an automobile accident. But they're not pulling automobiles off the road. I want you to understand this.
Chance of being black and shot by a cop than getting his blood clot.
So the overreaction, I fear, is going to fuel the ignorant and fuel those who are on the anti-vaxxer train and saying, ah, see?
We told you.
We told you. I'm pissed.
But here's the thing. Have any of the vaccination companies, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson ever said that this was going to be 100% proof?
No, they didn't.
Come out and say this is 100%, or taking the vaccination is more so to help prevent you from having the worst effects of the virus.
Right, but so we got side effects, we got adverse effects, we got what the vaccine is supposed to do. Right? So they pointed out the side effects. We explained on the show at nauseum the difference between side effects and adverse effects. And then what the vaccine is supposed to do. So no, the vaccine is not a cure of COVID. Right? Nobody ever said that. So when the anti-vaxxers said, oh, this person got the vaccine and then 2 weeks later they got COVID. Duh.
I think people are believing that it's supposed to be a cure.
No, I'm not saying that they're not. Which is why, for me, Diane, I'm pissed. Because we understand that you have... So, like Vincent said before, willful ignorance in some cases. Just ignorance in other cases.
And some just conscientiously stupidity.
Right, stupidity in some cases. Right, so we got all of that. Right, and then you have those who are preying on those who are in that pot of ignorance, willful ignorance, stupidity, right, all those things, right? So you got these people who are preying on them. And then you've got the knowledgeable people out here making dumb decisions like they did with Johnson & Johnson. Right? Come out, have the conversation that says what? Hey, listen. I mean, if you were to count the number of people who probably died from taking Tylenol last year, right? Think about that. Here's what I want to say to all of the people too. All of you freaking idiots who go and drink that 5-hour boost drink from 7-Eleven, right? Or all of these people who are woke, who go and get these elderberry and whatever fruit concoctions from these like mini marts and stuff that have no labels on them, that somebody's making out of their kitchen, right? But you're woke enough to understand this. But you don't know what you're drinking and what you're consuming from these local stores and you buying all this stuff. Stop it. It's crazy.
No.
Listen, can I have a little lighthearted? Okay, make the comment, then I want to move to some lighthearted stuff.
I'm pissed off about the Johnson & Johnson shutdown for other reasons. You're talking about 6 out of 7 million, in which they had a rare blood clot. And the government had no problem in shutting it down because of the 6. Yet, in the last 30 days, we've had over 46 mass shootings. 46 mass shootings. And they've done nothing to shut it down. Yet they can shut it down for 6 people with blood clots.
Yeah.
That's why I'm pissed.
Yeah. Well, you know. I don't know, guys. I don't know. What other news is there? Is there did we cover any other stuff that's out there to talk about that you might want to talk about?
No.
TD Jake and Sean Robinson have partnered together to create these Lifetime movies that fall under the 7 deadly sins. So that's coming out on Lifetime. So, and the first 2 are Lust and Envy. And Envy has Candy Burris in it from the Atlanta Housewives.
Oh Lord!
You know what's been? I can't watch.
You don't watch Lifetime movies?
I don't.
What?
You know.
What are you?
Well,
What is wrong with you?
so because I don't. My time is valuable, right? And I have an addictive personality when it comes to certain things like that.
No, not you.
And then I could just like all of a sudden I'll find myself watching and watching and watching and watching, and I got work to do. So, I try to avoid them. Huh?
That's very true. That's very true. So you know what I do is I turn it on in several different rooms. So as I'm cleaning on Saturday, I don't miss it. But you also can tape it.
Yeah, I see. I don't want to go down that like. So there's a couple things that I look forward to watching. I told you, and I don't know what's going on. I think some awards were on last night, so I didn't get my fix of Queen Latifah in The Equalizer. But I do look forward to The Equalizer, and 2.5 Men. As dysfunctional as it is, I watch the repeats. It kind of cleanses me, right? Just kind of, But my brother, and he knows that I have this addictive personality. He called me up the other day. He said, Eric, listen, man. He said, I know, you spend all your time, on the business and everything. He said, you need to decompress. He said, you ever watch this show on YouTube called Hot Ones? I don't know if you guys have seen it or heard about it. So it is, and I feel responsible once I tell you and you watch it and then you tell me that you're hooked on it, right? So it's a show about they have these progressively hot wings, chicken wings, that you eat, right? And the guy now has like 9 million followers on his YouTube. And he has guests like I watched the one last night with Wanda Sykes. He's had Shaquille O'Neal on. He's had Terry Crews on. He's had like some very notable people on. And you sit there and it's called it's called Hot Ones, right? So he's got 10
right here in Jersey. We can get those.
Finish listening to what I. So he's got 10 different hot sauces, and they get progressively hot all along the way, right? So you eat one, and then during eating the wing, he's having a conversation with you. He's interviewing them, and the interviews are actually very well done, right? But what happens is the wings at some point get so hot that the guests are like downing pitchers of water and glasses of milk to try to contain the heat. And while that's happening, he's still asking very serious and poignant questions in an interview. And so to watch the guests try to focus as they literally are losing their minds is hysterical. And so I've seen some of them where he's asked questions and the guests just blurt out, "Fuck you," because they're trying to deal with this extreme heat from the wings. And but I find it to be hysterical, and so that has occupied way too much of my time. And so no, I'm not watching anything on Lifetime.
Yeah. Oh, on the other yesterday, DJ Black Rob died, and
yes,
the backlash on social media towards P. Diddy was enormous.
I don't know why. It wasn't his responsibility to pay for his funeral or take care of him after he made this money. So this is the problem with the entertainment world. And even to do insurances, you have to be licensed and certified by their agencies, the NFL, the NBA, whatever, in order to interact with these players to provide.
Well, wait a minute. Give the background, because I don't know the background of this.
So the background is DJ Rob was in a hospital last week prior to DMX being in the hospital and going in a coma. While he was in a coma, Rob came out and he was in a hospital like he was near death, and his manager took a video and he wanted to big up DMX and talk about how great he was and this, that, and the other. So he was released a couple of days after DMX was passed away. and his manager did a GoFundMe account because they said that he didn't have housing, he didn't have any money, he needs to pay medical bills, yada yada yada. So he started a GoFundMe page, which now has, when I checked, I think they were asking for 60,000. He may be halfway at the mark, maybe close to 40,000. Rob was one of the rappers that started under Sean Puffy Combs when he started his label. So
Bad Boys.
Yeah, so he was under his label.
Got it.
And people are saying, and this has happened before, they don't understand why Sean Puffy Combs and or any other, well, more so him, has not come out to write a check to support, to help, and all this, that, and other. Now, Sean has helped other people because, you know, Mary J. Blige has had her issues when she had her divorce and she was, you know, sleeping on his couch. It was just a mess. So anyway, he has helped whoever he has helped. And he could do whatever he wanted to do with his money. But he's not the problem. The problem is these entertainers use all their money, spend all their money, because they are not financially wise enough to know or educated to know that they need to save their money to buy life insurance policies, to buy annuities, and create an IRA plan or anything. None of them have these things unless they individually do them themselves. So now people are backlashing and saying Sean Puffy Combs should be writing stuff to help him and this, that, and other. My thing is, no, it is the individual of the entertainer to learn how to manage your money. But it's also a collective of all of them. So if you're all in the same group, you're all rappers. Nobody said, let's create a fund, a retirement fund. Nobody said, let's do X, Y, and Z. I mean, have we not learned from the NFL what happens when you come out of these entertainment type sports positions and now you're on your own? You have no money. You tricked up all your money on
parties, go-go dancers, etc.
Different things and flat, you know, being flashy for everybody in the house, a car in the house, and all this. Now you have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I think that it's, again, another very dangerous, you know, thing to do, where you've got this culture where the folks are not holding this deceased rapper or entertainer accountable for his failings, right? But now you want to hold somebody else accountable for not helping him out. No,
Right.
he screwed up. He didn't do what he was supposed to do, and the only person in the end who's accountable for him is him. Sean Puffy Combs is not accountable for him, for that guy. That guy was accountable for him, and he failed himself. That's it. And so and as tragic as it is, it's what happened. And if Sean Puffy Combs decides that he wants to help out, that's great. If he decides he doesn't, that's his business. See, and I think that the majority of people who are in that thread, who are writing that stuff, are the same ones who will be putting up GoFundMe pages when their loved ones pass, or their loved ones will be putting up GoFundMe pages when they pass, because they're in that mindset. You see, that says, I don't have to be accountable for myself. I can go and screw my life up and then shame somebody else for not taking care of me. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Now we're talking about wealth shaming.
Well, we're talking about, I don't think it's wealth shaming.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it. Well, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that you are, you know, people, you know, they don't want to be accountable, and you have to be accountable, right? You have. There's some things that you should be doing for yourself, and if you don't get them done, and if your family members are, but we talked about this before, right, Diane? I mean, I'm tired of seeing the GoFundMe pages, and then understand this too. For the most part, you're asking people who don't have or scraping by themselves to contribute to your shit. I mean, like, come on. I'm not talking about the.
You say the devil. Go on, Eric.
I'm not talking about the Sean Puffy Combs situation. I'm just talking about in general. When I see in a neighborhood, I see these GoFundMe pages. The people who would be contributing are people who probably don't have 6 months worth of savings themselves. Right? Come on. We got to do better. And so, yeah. So here's an opportunity to plug. Call Diana Murray Clemens. She's an insurance.
That's right.
That's right.
That insurance, that life insurance. Don't wait till the last minute, because if you wait too long, when you have those ailments and illnesses, it will be too much for you to afford, and it will be too late for some. So 908-686-4609, or you can reach out to me on my website at www.dlminsurance.com.
Bam. And we're gonna end it there. We're not even gonna. Step on that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hang tight. I'm gonna go watch the. I want to see what they said in the closing arguments. Go check that out.
Oh, okay.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Up now doing their closing arguments.
Let me go check it out. Have a great one. Love you all. See you tomorrow. DiGiovanni Day. Make sure you tune in. Bye-bye.
Vote for Diane.
Vote for